Welcome back to Joe's Son of Boxing. Martin Bakole wins a 10-round unanimous decision over Tony Yoka in Paris. Um, this was this is a very interesting fight because I think we saw the absolute very best and the very worst of Martin Bakole, and I'll explain what I mean as I go along. But there's no doubt that the defeat for Yoka was, to me, it was kind of surprising. I thought Yoka would outbox Bakole and maybe even stop him late. Um, I've never been convinced by Bakole. I think his conditioning is questionable, and I think his gas tank as a result of that isn't very good, and more of that later. But there's no doubt that he does have some very considerable attributes as well. And in the opening round of this fight, out comes Bakole looking like Sonny Liston. I mean, he's banging rights and lefts to the body. He's switching to the head. He's cutting the ring off very, very quickly. He looked fantastic in the opening round. Yoka was taken a little bit by surprise, and towards the end of the round, Bakole landed a very powerful overhand right, which splayed Yoka's legs, and then another couple of follow-up punches put Yoka on the floor, and it looked like a quick stoppage was imminent. Yoka made it to the final, to the bell. In the second round, you expected Bakole to come out banging. He'd used up a lot of energy in the first round, but it's only the first round, so what, Second round, suddenly switched off. He was still cutting the ring off, and he was still, when he was landing punches, they were very heavy, hurtful punches, and Yoka just couldn't put a dent in Bakole. But he didn't jump on him. Bakole, for some reason, did not jump in that second round on a very badly damaged Tony Yoka. And Yoka was constantly moving around the periphery of the ring. He was, he certainly wasn't. He made a mistake a couple of times of being on the sort of periphery of the range, whereas he discovered that he was going to get hurt. So most of the time he was moving. He was, constantly staying out of range. But there were a few times where he fell in close into the sort of eye of the storm, and he was safe, and he didn't seem to do that enough. Bakole was, he's a bear of a man, physically very, very strong. Maybe getting in close would enable Bakole to lean all over him and drain his strength. But I don't know, Yoka's movement was using up lots of energy too. But in the second round, he was kind of sort of semi let off the hook. But then in the third round, back comes Bakole, and he's banging him again. I mean, he's hitting him hard, and suddenly Yoka's, he's got a welt under his, I think it was his left eye. His nose is bleeding. I think if it wasn't broken then, it was certainly broken later in the fight. And Bakole's putting the heat on him again, and it looks, again, the writing's on the wall. And in the fourth round, it was the same as the second round. Bakole took his foot off the gas. Now, you got to wonder, why is this? And Bakole, as I said earlier, is a bear of a man, a big, powerful geezer, right? Intimidating, the size of him. But his conditioning has always looked to me, including in this fight, very questionable. He's got some excess weight around his middle. He hasn't worked on his cardio, and I think I don't know whether it's lack of discipline or whether he's just not got a proper or decent dietitian. I don't know what it is. But if he could get conditioned to the point where he could keep the heat on an opponent like he was in the first round, instead of having to have an energetic, productive, busy round and then take one off, if he could avoid getting to the point where he has to take a round off, he'd be a demon, an absolute demon. Well, anyway, in the fifth round, Bakole scored a second knockdown, but it was a weird one because he clipped Yoka, who gave a little sort of stutter step and then seemed to twist his ankle and took a knee, and the referee called it a knockdown, quite rightly. So that's two knockdowns, and you're hard pushed to give Yoka a round up to of the first five. I mean, could you give him a round? I don't think I did, but I don't know. I don't think so. And in the sixth round, Again, Yoka would, and by the way, there's nothing whatsoever wrong with Yoka's heart. This guy's got guts, because like I say, his nose was busted, he had a twisted ankle. The body work, when Bakole did it, was excellent and was clearly strength sapping and energy sapping. Sixth round, if I remember rightly. Yeah, Bakole's round again. Again, not as busy as he had been in the earlier rounds, but was cutting the ring off still quite well. Again, Yoka skipping around the edge of the ring, trying to keep out of trouble, stopping and landing punches, which had no real effect on Bakole. 8th round. Now then, things got interesting because the 8th and the 9th round, Bakole seemed to be flagging a bit, at least in terms of output. And I think Yoka, to his credit, was really trying the 8th and the 9th round. He was trying to just claw something back. I mean, it was, talk about swimming against the tide, but he was at least, he's showing great heart. He was showing great will, and he was landing some combinations. And again, they weren't having a great deal of effect on Bakole, but nevertheless, they were points winners. So could I give the 7th? Actually, the 7th round I think was probably Yoka's best round. I think it was the 7th. He had one good round, so I'd probably give him that round. The 8th and the 9th I think were Bakole's, but again, I repeat, Yoka was doing more work. It's just that the weight of Bakole's punches seemed to sort of eradicate any good work that Yoka might do in those little pockets of activity. But in the 10th round, Virgil Hunter, who was in Yoka's corner, said, you need a knockout to win. In fact, with 3 rounds to go, he said, you need to win all these rounds and a knockdown. Yoka wasn't getting anywhere, so before the final round, Virgil Hunter said, knock him out. Knock him out. I don't know what Billy Nelson in Bakole's corner said, but it was probably just, you got this in the bag, don't do anything stupid. I would imagine it was something like that, but don't quote me on that. So, having been ordered to knock out Bakole, what does Yoka do? Well, nothing is the answer. Again, lots and lots of movement, staying out of range. Didn't go for it. Maybe they're little 5-second pockets of little spurts of activity, but generally speaking, he was staying out of the way. Bakole got frustrated, actually stamped on the centre of the canvas and said, come on, fight me, fight me. Not a chance. Even though he needed the knockout to win, even though he'd been instructed to try to knock Bakole out, Yoka couldn't do anything. Yoka couldn't do anything at all, and he really just survived in that round. The crowd were actually booing at one point. I don't know whether they were booing Yoka or Bakole, or just maybe just the general lack of activity in that final round. But, what was an intriguing heavyweight fight finished with a sort of fizzled out. It didn't really, there was no grandstand finish. This wasn't like the final round of Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. This was the polar opposite of that. But anyway, Martin Bakole, you saw the very, very good side of him and the bad side, which is his conditioning and his lack of activity in certain rounds. Takes his foot off the gas way too much. When he's productive, he's very productive, very hurtful, especially to the body. Physically big, strong man, but must condition himself. Otherwise, he's not going to get past, European level. Tony Yoka, it's a rebuilding process. He had some out-of-the-ring problems, I think, divorced, and, so it's always time-consuming and when that sort of thing happens. But he's an Olympic champion, of course, questionable Olympic champion, because I thought Joe Joyce beat him in the final, but he got the decision, and this is his first professional loss. Can he come back? Yes, if he wants to. But Yoka's career as a professional has sort of stuttered. It stopped and started, and he's flattered to deceive, I think. Yeah. Anyway, what did you think of the fight? Do you think Bakole can go further than this? What do you think about Yoka? Can he come back? Let me know your comments. Thanks as always for your time. If you could subscribe to the channel if you're new, I'd appreciate that. Trying to build the channel up, of course. And thanks for your time. Yeah, I'll speak again soon to you. Meanwhile, take care. Look after yourself. Bye for now.